Hey everybody, it's Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick. You're listening to your Morning Coffee, the podcast. Weekly music news for the new music business by two longtime Cheap Trick fans, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart. We were Jay's first concert, 8/13/77, right Jay? Portland, Oregon? I don't know. Have a nice day.
From Glenn Peoples at Billboard, AI artists may be on the charts, but they're not that popular yet.
From Murray Stassen at Music Business Worldwide, 50,000 AI tracks flood Deezer every day. As study shows, 97% of listeners can't tell the difference between human-made versus fully AI-generated music.
And from Mike Epstein from his Hey Mike blog, the independent artist with 1 billion streams. Mike explains how Nick D does it. Woo! A lot of good stuff to cover, Jay. We're looking forward to doing that. Glad you are all here. It's episode 276. And we're going to start the show right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. On the air. On the air. On the air. On the air.
Standing by.
Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
They always say that friends can't be lovers. It's always hard to find. After looking around my life, it was you. The whole time, I can't believe the way this happened. Just when I thought I was lost. It goes to show if you open your eyes, you might see what you're looking for. And right on time, yeah, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. In the future of what we got.
Good morning.
Good to see you, Jay. Good to see you. Happy new week.
Yeah, same to you. By the way, that was Cheap Trick. Their new album is out now. It's called All Washed Up. I've seen the cover of that with the wash machines.
Yeah,
it was
so great.
brilliant. That song is the best thing. All Washed Up is their 21st studio album. Their first album was one of the first records I ever bought. I'll be seeing them this week. They're opening for Todd Rundgren and Heart here at the Honda Center in Los Angeles. Can't wait.
That's going to be a great show, by the way. A really great show.
Yeah.
Hey, and of course, we had a little spring in our step as we started the week because last week we got to hang out and do our second version of the AI Roundtable special. That's going to be coming this Wednesday. We had Kristen Robinson from Billboard, author, podcaster Bobby Owsinski, Virginie Berger from TouchTune, and Vicki Nauman over at Cross Border Works. And man, it was fascinating. Really neat conversation.
Yeah, that was our second AI Roundtable. Don't miss it. These are some of the brightest minds in the business, and we're so honored to sit down and have this conversation with them. Also coming is a Your Morning Coffee special episode. I'm sitting down this week with Livia Tortella from Black Box. And you know Livia from, she was the EVP of marketing at Atlantic, co-president at Warner Brothers Records. And I'm really looking forward to that conversation.
And you have a few interesting Behind the Setlist podcasts coming up, a couple of good ones.
Yeah, we recorded with Lady A, so that's coming soon. Really great conversation. I was traveling, so I wasn't able to sit down with Glenn when he interviewed Baby Metal. Looking forward to that one. And last week we sat down with Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Fantastic conversation about guitars and cars and his new tour. It's fantastic. And I'm really looking forward to this week. We're going to be talking with John Five, from Motley Crue, Marilyn Manson, and his incredible solo work. His new album is called Ghost, and it is absolutely fantastic.
I meant to take a picture of the cover of Vintage Guitar Magazine this month. John Five is on the cover, and inside, of course, some of his fabulous Telecasters that he collects.
He has got the biggest collection I've ever seen of Fender Telecasters.
Yeah, indeed. Well, a few things in the news this week. Elton John's Rocket Hour, believe it or not, just celebrated its 10th anniversary episode. Across 446 episodes, Elton John has spotlighted more than 3,000 artists and 6,700 songs. He's interviewed 212 special guests from his first, Brandon Flowers to Ed Sheeran, Billie Eilish, Noel Gallagher, Casey Musgraves, and the current generation of stars such as Sam Fender, Ray, Chappell Roan, Wet Leg, and many, many more. The guy does not sleep.
No, he always has been such a musicologist and the hardest working man in show business. Tune in to Elton John's Rocket Hour every Saturday at 9 a.m. West Coast time, noon New York time, and 5 p.m. if you're in London. And if you haven't listened to Apple Music Radio, you're really missing out. Earlier this year, Apple Music expanded all of those radio offerings. In addition to Apple Music One, it already had Apple Music Hits and Apple Music Country. They added 3 new stations, Apple Musica Uno, the Latin Music Channel, and dance-focused Apple Music Club, and Apple Music Chill, which is my favorite. But they're doing such a great job over there with Apple Music Radio. Some really interesting shows. Check it out.
Really good stuff, absolutely. Interesting news on some catalog acquisitions. We've been following the business of catalog acquisitions for years, especially the gold rush years, which is kind of around 2020 to 2022. We've, of course, spoken to Merck Mercuriadis over at Hypnosis, and just last week we dropped an insightful special episode of this podcast with Josh Gruss over at Roundhill Music.
Yeah, this week I checked in with Chris Nolte. He's the COO and co-founder of Duetti. And if you don't know, Duetti acquires and monetizes music catalogs from indie artists. It gives them upfront cash for their rights. It's founded by former Tidal and Apple Music executives. The company uses data-driven analysis to evaluate and market music to help artists fund their careers while retaining stake in their work. So I had a chance to sit down and check in with Chris. Let's listen in. Chris Nolte, good to see you. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day.
Thanks a lot for having me, Jay. I'm excited to be here.
For those with no prior knowledge, how would you describe Duetti?
We describe ourselves as a music company, an innovative music company. We buy and manage and market catalogs focused on independent creators, songwriters, and artists. And we do that all using a lot of technology and AI, amongst other things.
We've seen a huge shift since that sort of 2020, 2022 music IP, boom. Rates are higher now. The outlook for streaming isn't quite the same. It's slowed down. How have those changes sort of affected the way that you do business?
The rates have affected how we do business in that we're actually lucky that we started the company in 2022 in that sense, right? So we started the company when the ZIRP, zero interest rate policy time, was effectively coming to an end already, right? So in a way, it made it harder for us to get in, but it did force us to have discipline from the start, and that allowed us to, or forced us to rather, build a company in a very sustainable way like that, right? So it hasn't been as much of a shock for us as it maybe has been for companies that were operating in that environment before us.
When you underwrite deals today, what are the swing factors in your cash flow models? For example, things like TikTok and user-generated content licensing and AI you mentioned, and even things like the CRB and the MLC. Which of those things keep you up at night, and what are you actually doing to hedge your bets there?
In what we do, and the biggest factors when we underwrite or value a catalog are definitely streaming at the end of the day, right? So ultimately, we look at what's going to happen with streaming in general and what's going to happen to streaming for a particular track, of course, right? And that takes into consideration how are different countries developing, how are different DSPs and their market shares changing over time, what's happening with their pricing. So UGC licensing, of course, we're all, I wouldn't say we're holding our breath at Duetti, but of course we'd love to see some more happen there. And we see that as a big upside. And so of course we do very, very detailed work in looking at all the different aspects of everything you just mentioned. But overall, what we're really looking at is who are the fans and how engaged are they going to be over the long term? Because that's what we invest in at the end of the day is long-term fandom. So we're making sure an artist isn't just a blip in the sense, or isn't just propped up by playlists or an algorithm, but actually has fans that are going to stick around.
Yeah. Before we hit record, we were talking about your website. I was looking at it, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that you'll go as low as, say, $2,000 annually to have a conversation with artists. What's that mix like? Are you looking for some of those developing artists and middle class artists as well as some of the larger acquisitions?
Yeah, I mean, Duetti was started specifically to support independent creators. We started with artists. Now we do producers and songwriters as well, meaning a producer on the master side may not have ownership of the rights, but is getting a split, for example, right? So we really started. Our purpose, our mission is to support the independent creator community or the independent musician community. And for that, you have to be able to support working artists, right? Independent artists who are at that level you're describing, starting at around $2,000 a year in our case. Other models are not really focused on that because it is not that much less work to do a deal at that level than it is to do a deal at a much higher level. Of course, when we're talking about, the 9-figure sums that are being paid for some of the world's greatest, largest catalogs, that's maybe another story. And that's an area that we don't play in, right? So we decidedly start at around that mark, around the $2,000 a year mark what somebody's earning. And we go up, quite a bit from there, about 2 orders of magnitude or so, to someone who's making maybe even $1 million a year, right? But that's kind of where we stop, and then beyond that, we leave it to the other names that you were mentioning earlier, right? Recognition, pulmonary hypnosis, and so on and so forth.
Chris, where can people learn more about what you're doing and the company in general at Duetti?
Yeah, definitely on Duetti.co, Duetti.co. Duetti is spelled Duetti.co. There's a lot of info there, but you can also just Google us. There's some great conversations like this that my co-founder has had, my co-founder Lior Tivon. He's also very active on LinkedIn with some really good content there. So lots of places to find out about us.
Yeah, he is. Chris, thanks for your time. Let's talk again.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay.
Very interesting indeed. Another interesting piece in Variety, Matthew McConaughey, Michael Caine team with 11 labs for AI-generated versions of their voices.
Yeah, I found this really interesting, and I know you and I talked about it before we hit record, the ramifications of this. It's not just Matthew McConaughey or Michael Caine. There's a lot of actors who are, sort of selling the rights to their voice to AI company 11 Labs, which has been in the news a lot lately. They produce these virtual replications of these famous voices.
So McConaughey is also investing an undisclosed sum in New York-based 11 Labs. He's collaborated with the company since it was founded back in 2022. And now McConaughey is using 11 Labs technology to bring a Spanish-language audio version of his newsletter, Lyrics of Livin', in his own voice.
Yeah, I think that's super exciting. You and I were just talking about, maybe we should do this podcast and have it translated, localized into, Spanish and Japanese and other languages. I think that would be super interesting. Another piece that caught our attention this week was from Mandy DeLugdug over at Music Business Worldwide, and the headline was "Subscription raises $5 million." I'm sorry, Songscription, not subscription. The company is called Songscription. Raises $5 million in funding as this Shazam for sheet music platform reaches 150,000 users. So Songscription's AI models analyze uploaded audio and produce sheet music, guitar tabs, or MIDI files that users can edit directly on the platform. I tried it out. It's really interesting. You just upload, say, an MP3 of your song, and it can make sheet music out of it. It's crazy. Wow, since launching 5 months ago, Songscription says it now attracted more than 150,000 users across 150 countries. Really incredible use of AI.
Yeah, good for them. That's awesome. Of course, a couple things from Spotify in the news this week. So Spotify updates Shuffle. With this new update, the company is making Shuffle with fewer repeats the default for paid users. This means users will hear fewer songs from their recent listening history and more new songs.
Yeah, and also in the news this week from Spotify, the headline, this is from Glenn Peoples at Billboard. The headline was Spotify replaces new family plans with quote-unquote premium platinum tier in 5 markets. So premium platinum includes lossless audio quality, which began rolling out as a standard feature in 50 markets, including US and the UK in September. Other features include the ability to mix playlists, a personal AI DJ, AI playlist creation, and the ability to connect to DJ software, and in some markets, audiobook listening.
All right. Another Spotify story, rather, from Stephen Horowitz at Variety. Spotify to launch music videos on platform in the U.S. So users will be able to switch between audio and video with the tap of a button. It's unclear if the feature will be available to all subscriber tiers or just premium users, as the overseas launch was rolled out to the latter.
Yeah, never a shortage of Spotify news. Dear Lord.
Never.
There was a headline that was sort of an attention-getting, I wouldn't call it clickbait, but it certainly got everybody's attention. This is from Dave Brooks at Billboard. The headline was 70% of music fans prefer seeing concerts by their favorite artists over sex. And this is a Live Nation report. Music fans would choose a concert over having sex if it meant seeing their favorite artist perform, according to a recent survey from concert promoter Live Nation.
Titled Living for Live, the global report includes insights from more than 42,000 fans, defined as anyone who attended a concert in the last year. They're aged 18 to 54 across 15 different countries, including all of North America, most of Western Europe, Australia, Japan, Thailand, and Brazil.
Yeah, the study found that 35% of fans plan to attend at least 4 concerts per year, while about 29% of festival goers plan to attend at least 4 festivals per year. The report also found that 85% of music fans said music was a core part of their identity, that 77% felt that something bigger at shows, and that among parents, the number one passion many hope to pass on to their children would be the love of music.
Indeed. The report also found that demand for female artists was continuing to grow, with 76% of responding fans reporting that they wanted more female-led lineups, and 60% reporting a desire to see more festivals spotlight female talent. Well, Jay, before we get going on the big stories, what do you say we thank our sponsors? Couldn't do it without them, and boy, we have huge appreciation for them helping us every week.
Yeah, the Your Morning Coffee podcast is sponsored by our friends at Soundcloud. Keep 100% of your earnings. Soundcloud has launched its first true all-in-one subscription for artists, so artists have even more ways to earn and keep what's theirs. Creators can distribute, monetize, and grow their fan base all in one place. 100% royalties on every distributed track across every major platform, and direct fan support with no cuts. Just complete control over your music and your earnings. Learn more about the all-in-one artist subscription today with a 1-month free trial. Just use the promo code YMCFREE.
And we are also sponsored by Hypebot. Since 2004, Hypebot has chronicled the new music industry and the trends and technologies that are changing how music is discovered, consumed, marketed, and monetized. Edited daily by founder Bruce Houghton with help from Jeremy Young, Hypebot is published and supported by live music discovery and marketing platform Bands in Town.
Yes, sir, and congratulations, Bands in Town. Now over 100 million live music fans trust Bands in Town to get personalized concert alerts, recommendations, and messages from their favorite artists. It's the #1 artist services platform. It connects over 700,000 artists with their superfans. Managers, labels, agencies, and artists access their own dashboard to manage and promote their tour dates. Over 4 billion music fans across all platforms.
Man, that is a big number. A
Yes.
big number indeed. And every week I get to hang out with that dude right there, Jay Gilbert, music industry consultant, curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music Groups.
Yeah, and every week I get to do this podcast with my good friend Mike Etchart, and we usually talk for like an hour beforehand about music and books and food and avocados and stuff. Anyway, he was the longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Group. And Mike, before we jump into the big stories, I wanted to mention, sadly this morning we learned that singer-songwriter Todd Snyder has passed away. And I got to be friends with Todd, and I've worked many records with him, and it was just a joy to work with, a true American treasure. And if you get a chance, listen to the album East Nashville Skyline. It'll give you a sense of his humor and his music, and just such a tragic loss. Rest in peace, Todd Snyder.
Indeed, a great, great artist. Gone too soon, for sure. Well, Jay, let's jump into our stories, the big stories this week. This first one is from Murray Stassen over at Music Business Worldwide. 50,000 AI tracks flood Deezer daily. As study shows, 97% of listeners can't tell the difference between human-made versus fully AI-generated music. So fully AI-generated music now accounts for 34% of all tracks delivered to Deezer each day, according to new data released by the French streaming platform.
Right. Deezer reported last week that it now receives over 50,000 fully AI-generated tracks on average every day. The new stat marks a significant jump from the 30,000 figure it reported in September. And then in April, they reported 20,000. And then last January, it was 10,000. So it's really grown.
Yeah, crazy. So according to the platform, up to 70% of plays for fully AI-generated tracks have been detected as fraudulent, with Deezer filtering these streams out of royalty payments.
Right. And I forgot to mention that, they were the first ones to really launch a proprietary AI detection tool, and they did this back in January. So although fully AI-generated music currently accounts for only, 0.5% of all streams on Deezer, the company maintains that fraudulent activity remains the primary motivation behind these uploads.
Right. The platform says it removes all 100% AI-generated tracks from algorithmic recommendations and excludes them from editorial playlists to minimize their impact on the royalty pool.
Yeah, and that's super important. Deezer's new numbers imply it receives approximately 147,000 tracks daily in total, a notable increase from the roughly 107,000 daily uploads it was receiving back in September. That latter figure was in the same ballpark as data issued by Luminate earlier this year, which indicated that approximately 99,000 new ISRCs, that's a unique identifier on the master side, were being delivered to platforms every 24 hours.
Well, and as we pointed out in September, the difference between the numbers could represent the growth in volume of AI slop hitting services in 2025. Back in December of last year, Deezer applied for 2 patents for its AI detection technology, focused on 2 different methods of detecting unique signatures that are used to distinguish what it calls synthetic content from authentic content.
Right. Since January, Deezer has been using its proprietary AI detection tool to identify and to tag fully AI-generated content. The surge comes as Deezer unveils the results of what it calls the first-of-its-kind survey conducted by Ipsos across 8 countries with 9,000 participants, and that explores global attitudes towards AI-generated music.
Right. Well, the survey's most striking finding, 97% of respondents couldn't distinguish between fully AI-generated tracks and human-made music in a blind listening test. More than half, 52%, felt uncomfortable with their inability to tell the difference.
Right, but we talk about this all the time. 18 months ago, 2 years ago, it was pretty obvious, when you saw an AI-generated video or you heard an AI-generated song, they just sounded sort of artifacty and weird, and not anymore. They're getting better and better, and they're only going to get better. And Deezer said that the results of this Ipsos survey demonstrate strong public support for transparency measures. Some 80% of respondents agreed that 100% AI-generated music should be clearly labeled, while 73% of music streaming users said that they want to know if the platform is recommending synthetic tracks.
Right. So nearly 3/4, 73%, believe it's unethical for AI companies to use copyrighted material to generate new music without clear approval from original artists, while 65% said AI models shouldn't be allowed to train on copyrighted material at all.
Right. And if you want to dig deeper into this, listen to our AI Roundtable. Again, it's dropping this week. This is our second AI Roundtable, and we cover a lot of these issues with some really smart people. Our next story is from our friend Glenn Peoples at Billboard, and the headline is AI artists may be on the charts, but they're not that popular yet. And before we jump into the story, you and I are big fans of Rick Beato. And Rick Beato had this really interesting video that he dropped, and it really speaks to what Glenn is getting into here. So before we jump into Glenn's story, let's listen to Rick Beato.
Okay, so it finally happened. We finally have our first #1 AI song on the charts. At least that's what I was led to believe by reading all these articles that people have been sending to me. So check this out. We got Newsweek. The #1 country song in America is AI generated. The Register, AI Slop hits new high as fake country artist goes #1 on Billboard Digital Songs chart. Or the Tennessean, Who is Breaking Rust? For the first time, an AI country singer tops Billboard charts. Or the San Francisco Chronicle, AI country singer Breaking Rust tops Billboard with Walk My Walk. Okay, first of all, Breaking Rust is the most AI name I could possibly think of. I went and looked at it on the Spotify thing, the picture, and you have this cowboy looking dude that's definitely an AI generated picture. And they have 2.2 million monthly listeners already. It's kind of like the Velvet Sundown did, but actually a few more listeners. Let me play it for you here, just so you can get an idea what we're talking about, okay? So you get a vibe, and then we'll talk about how it's #1.
Been beat down, but I don't stay low. Got mud on my jeans, still ready to go. Every scar's a story that I survived. I've been through hell, but I'm still alive. They said, slow down, boy, don't go too fast. But I ain't never been one to live in the past. I keep moving forward, never looking back, with a worn out hat and a 6-string Strat.
Oh, jeez.
You can kick rocks if you don't like how I talk. I'm gonna keep on talking and walk my walk. Ain't changing my tone, ain't changing my song. I was born this way, been
I was born this way.
Long.
Okay, some of you might be wondering, how is this possibly the #1 song on the country charts? Well, the only chart it's #1 on is the digital sales chart, which means how many downloads did it sell? Now, you may be saying, well, who buys downloads? Exactly. So that is from the Apple Store for the most part, the iTunes Store. You can buy it for 99 cents, as you can see here. But let me go to the Billboard chart where it's #1, where they're referencing. There's a little article. It says, Walk My Walk, the act earned its first leader on the Billboard list as Walk My Walk struts to #1 on the country digital song sales chart, 3,000 sold. So it cost $3,000 to get the #1 spot.
Interesting. So Breaking Rust, Kane Walker, and Zanya Monet have shocked the music industry, but they're far from the genre's biggest artists. Just because an AI-generated track makes or even tops a Billboard chart doesn't mean it's very popular.
Right. Glenn goes on to write that take, for example, Breaking Rust, an AI-assisted artist that has attracted global attention for reaching #1 on the country digital song sales chart, right? Breaking Rust's track, Walk My Walk, amassed approximately 3,000 track downloads in the week ending November 6th, according to Luminate. Don't Tread on Me by Kane Walker, another AI-assisted country artist, is currently #3 after selling approximately 2,000 downloads in that same week. That's all it takes to top a genre download chart these days.
Right. The digital download is a relic of an era when iTunes ruled the music industry and streaming was in its infancy. Over the years, as consumers shifted to subscription streaming platforms, downloads have all but disappeared from the landscape. In 2024, downloads accounted for $329 million, according to the RIAA, approximately 2% of U.S. recorded music revenue.
Right, but that's down 86% from 2015, when downloads generated $2.3 billion and represented over a third of the U.S. market. Revenue from subscription streaming platforms, which now play a major role in most well-known charts, climbed 860% to $11.7 billion over the same time span.
And pop songs put up much better numbers. As Billboard noted in an article on country executives' reactions to Breaking Rust and Walker, the top track on the all-genre digital song sales chart, Taylor Swift's The Fate of Ophelia, sold 29,000 copies. But even the most popular pop download doesn't do the numbers seen just a decade ago. The #1 track in the same first week in November of 2015, Hello by Adele, sold a whopping 636,000 units.
Wow, that's 636,000 downloads of that Adele track compared to 29,000 recently of Taylor Swift. That's crazy. So to put Breaking Rust, that AI-generated band, and Kane Walker's popularity into better context, it helps to know where they rank amongst their human peers. For the week ending November 6th, Breaking Rust was ranked number 228 among country artists in terms of equivalent album units. That's EAUs, which combine streams and sales into a single metric, right? #1 country artist Morgan Wallen had 113 times more of these EAUs and 227 times more than Walker, who was at number 359. It would take 13 Breaking Rusts and 25 Kane Walkers to equal the number 18 artist, Bailey Zimmerman.
Wow. So the most successful AI artist is currently Zanya Monet. Her creator, Talisha Jones, writes the lyrics and uses an AI platform to create the music. Monet has been on Billboard charts such as the R&B digital song sales, the hot gospel songs, and emerging artists. But among artists of all genres, Monet ranked only 927 in terms of EAUs. In the week ended November 6th, about equal to Cyndi Lauper and French Montana, artists who, unlike Monet, aren't currently being promoted to terrestrial radio and attracting worldwide fascination.
Right. Glenn goes on to write that, to be sure, many human artists would love to have the sales and streaming numbers of these AI-assisted artists. Walker and Breaking Rust are number 9 and number 11, respectively, on the emerging artist chart, right behind country singer Alexandra Kay, who is signed to BMG-owned BBR Music and regularly sells out theaters around the country. In the U.S., Breaking Rust has 9.3 million streams to date, while Kane Walker has 1 million, according to Luminate. That kind of numbers, achieved by developing artists backed by record labels and artist managers.
But the AI artists attracting headlines and creating consternation within the music industry don't have popularity to match the attention they're getting. They are making noise mainly by getting onto download charts, which don't reflect how most Americans consume music, nor are they likely to have the longevity of other artists. Walker, ranked number 359 amongst country artists, is just a few spots below country legend Hank Williams.
But nobody is saying that Kane Walker matches the popularity of Hank Williams, an inductee into the Country Hall of Fame, Songwriters Hall of Fame, and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's not at all to say that AI artists aren't having an impact. They're quickly growing in numbers, and it's not difficult to imagine that they soon gobble up some of the market share.
Right. Take the 10 AI-generated or AI-assisted artists mentioned in Billboard's November 4th article about AI artists who landed on the charts. The 10 artists mentioned in that article, including Juno Sky, Enly Blue, Unbound Music, Ruby Dark Rose, and Child Pets Galore, have an average EAU in 2025 of approximately 7,200 units. That's not much, but 1,000 of these AI artists in aggregate could have a legitimate impact.
Yeah, good point. You know, this invasion of AI music may feel like a dystopian future to most people, but it's a plausible scenario. A person reading about Xenia Monet or Breaking Rust could experience the same spark of inspiration felt by teenagers singing punk rock bands in the mid to late 70s. You know, punk grew quickly because starting a band required a passion for music, not musical expertise. When millions of people read about AI artists on the charts, some of them, you know, they're going to have the same realization that kids in the 70s had. If they can do it, why can't I?
It's a good point. Billboard determines if a charting title is AI or AI assisted through checking the artist's official pages, some of which say they are generated with the help of AI, cross-checking the songs using Deezer's AI detection tool, which adds a flag to all AI-generated content on the platform, and reaching out to the creators themselves, among other methods.
Yeah, and so it begins. A great piece by Glenn Peoples. Don't forget to subscribe to his The Ledger newsletter. It's free. Just hop on over to Billboard. Great stuff, Glenn. Thank you. SoundCloud was in the news recently. Last week we reported that some of the new features on SoundCloud, including their decision to allow artists to keep 100% of their distribution royalties. So this week I checked in with SoundCloud CEO Eliah Seton to get the details. Let's listen in. SoundCloud just celebrated 27 years, congratulations, and has grown from a creator-first platform into a global cultural force in music. If you could distill SoundCloud's mission into the length of a tweet, what would it be, and how has that mission evolved since the platform began?
First of all, thank you. SoundCloud's founding purpose is to empower artists and fans to share, connect, and engage through music. And the fact is that same idea today is driving what's next in music. It's more at the center of gravity today than ever before. We know that streaming alone is not enough, and our goal is clear. You know, we want to make the royalty debate about who gets paid what matter less by opening better, more sustainable ways for artists to earn, powered by fans, not just streams.
You recently announced an all-in-one subscription and some other new features. What are they and what do they mean for artists?
Yes, with our Artist Pro subscription, you can distribute, you can monetize, you can grow your fan base all in one place. No detours, no compromises. We moved to 0% distribution revenue share. That means artists now receive 100% of their distribution royalties across all the various streaming platforms, from Spotify to Apple to YouTube, more than 60 other platforms. We also launched fan support, which provides the ability for artists to add a direct support module on their profile. In addition, we reward donating fans with a fan support module where we're bringing together a list of top supporters directly on the artist profile page. So in exchange for fan support, a fan is going to get acknowledged by the artist that they've contributed to by appearing on a part of the artist profile page. So that's not all. You know, this is an all-in-one bundle. We want to be the home for artists to not just find their fans and engage with that fan base, build that fan base, but to monetize it in many different ways. Artists can turn tracks into vinyl on demand without leaving SoundCloud, doing it on the platform with no upfront costs. They can take advantage of the artist storefront, which allows artists to showcase off-platform purchase options directly alongside their music, and they can create merch without leaving the platform.
What are some of the core strengths you believe set SoundCloud apart from other streaming platforms?
SoundCloud is a two-sided marketplace. We have our fan business, which is our streaming platform, where hundreds of millions of fans come to discover what's next in music, find that next great hit, that undiscovered gem, that DJ set that they heard in the club, whatever it might be. And we have our creator business, where artists are coming to begin their creative journey and retain their independence, to find their fans, build their fan base, to get heard, to get fans, and to get paid. We're the only creator platform in music with direct access to fans. That is totally unique in our space. We're building on fan-powered royalties, which was the first system in music tying royalties to real listener engagement. And we've expanded beyond the traditional royalty pie into new ways for artists to earn directly from fans. We feel by fueling artists, we fuel fandom. And by fueling fandom, we fuel artists.
Thanks. Where can our listeners learn more, and where can they sign up?
Yes, if you don't already have it, first things first, go to the App Store, download SoundCloud, find your scene, find what's trending, find those hidden gems, shape music culture in real time. It's all happening right now on SoundCloud. Use the promo code YMCFREE, that's YMCFREE, to redeem a 1-month trial at checkout.
Thanks, Eliah.
All right, good stuff. Well, our final story, it's from Mike Epstein from his Hey Mike blog, the independent artist with 1 billion streams. For those who don't know, Nick D is one of the biggest independent artists in the world. His catalog generates 1 million streams per day, which estimates his annual revenue to around $800,000 to $900,000 per year just from streaming.
Yeah, but Mike goes on to write, he doesn't tour. He barely sells merch and hasn't focused on creating content in a while. He lives in Culpeper, Virginia with his family in what he describes as a simple, quiet life. Here are some of my favorite takeaways from this interview.
Right. Well, number one is he's treating it like a business. He talks about how in 2019, when he first started releasing music, he dropped a song every 2 weeks. Each song cost him approximately $250 to release. This is including recording, mixing, mastering, and the beat purchase itself.
He set $250 as a target and very rarely wavered from it. He could have easily overinvested in higher-end studios, bigger production, more expensive mixing, etc. But his goal was always to make back the money he spent. His perspective was, what is a realistic amount of streams I can get to break even on this investment? The answer was approximately 50,000 streams.
Right. Well, and number two, persistence. So Nick talks about how in his first year of consistently releasing music, he dropped 24 songs and 24 music videos. Despite his assertive output, he was only averaging about 1,000 streams per day on his entire catalog. That equates to about 41 streams per song per day. Those are pretty low numbers, actually.
Yeah, Mike goes on to write that the gem in this is the fact that he kept going and showed persistence. He kept dropping music even after 24 songs didn't really connect. So many artists would have quit after that first year, or if we're being honest, they wouldn't have even made it to dropping 24 songs. Nick's determination and grit to continue going is ultimately what led to his success. His first real breakthrough song was Fine Apple, which was actually his 80th song released.
Wow, good for him. Well, the third point is it doesn't need to be perfect. Being an artist in today's day and age is essentially like building a product or company in public. Some songs or pieces of content will hit and some won't.
Right. Nick showed early on in his career, he knew the content he was putting out wasn't top notch, but he also knew he needed to work through the bad content until it got better.
Right. The fourth point for the article is if you want to, you will. This story from Nick is inspirational. During the COVID pandemic, he and his wife were forced to sell their house because they were losing so much business. At the time, he was a wedding photographer, a videographer, and COVID had basically paused all weddings.
Yeah, so after selling their house, the family moved into his mother-in-law's house because he couldn't record in her house. He started recording in the back of his Honda Odyssey. There was one electrical outlet in the back of the van, and he used that outlet to plug in his relatively relatively inexpensive interface and microphone and recorded the bulk of his early music there. Wow.
Well, the fifth point from the article is shoot your shot. Another awesome story from the interview is when Nick and Mauricio were talking about the ideas of shooting your shot and putting yourself out there. Mauricio tells the story of how in 2018, when he was still managing Jessie Reyez, she was on tour and had just arrived in Detroit to perform a show.
Right. Get this. While on the tour bus, Jessie and her team were debating the best approach to reach out to Eminem's manager, Paul Rosenberg, and see if Eminem would be interested in appearing as a special guest during their show.
Texting the music manager of such a legendary artist is a little nerve-wracking with such a big ask. While they were always 100% going to do it, they took some time trying to find the right words to convince him to say yes. They ultimately went for it and texted Paul.
Yeah, and a few minutes later, he actually responded and said that while Eminem passed on coming out as a special guest, he suggested that he and Jessie do a music video together while she was in town. That text message ultimately turned into the video for the song Good Guy.
Wow, it's such an awesome lesson in putting yourself out there and shooting your shot. So many missed opportunities happen out of fear of rejection or someone saying no.
Right. What's the worst that can happen? No is no, and life goes on. But if Mauricio and his team didn't send that text, a music video with Eminem wouldn't happen.
No, absolutely. Well, that is, it's actually really good advice. And you do got to just stick with it. And I remember in that wonderful Eagles documentary where I think it's Glenn Frey talking about when they started writing songs and saying the first ones aren't going to be good, but you just have to kind of stick with it.
Yeah, it's that consistency. And I talk about this a lot with music marketers. And that's the one word that comes up at almost every meeting, whether you're posting to social media, whether you're recording, whether you're touring, whether you're creating, imagery. It's that consistency. And it's true with you and I with this podcast, and it's true with the Your Morning Coffee newsletter. We don't miss a week. The newsletter's been going every single week now for almost 12 years and haven't missed a week. We've been doing this podcast for over 5 years and haven't missed a week. It's that consistency of just getting better and figuring out your equipment and, learning from other people. That consistency is really important. And the last thing I'll say is it sounds like a cliche, but it's so true that hard work beats talent every single time.
For sure. Absolutely. Well, hey, it is the end of the show. We do want to thank our sponsors. Big thanks to SoundCloud, Hypebot, and Bands in Town. We could not do it without y'all. Of course, that's music by the Licorice Quartet, and we would certainly appreciate if you like the show, tell just one friend. Jay and I would certainly appreciate that. So on behalf of my good friend Jay Gilbert, I'm Mike Etchart. Thanks for listening in, and we'll be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.